He might be the man least afraid of the police in the world. When he heard a chorus of sirens outside, with numerous police cars and helicopters closing in on his house, he simply stood up silently, stripped off all his clothes, and stood there, stark naked, waiting quietly for the SWAT team to break in. He calmly raised his hands, without a trace of panic, not even a flicker of fear on his face. What was about to unfold was his challenge against the entire justice system. And when you see what happens next, you'll understand why he remained so composed. 10 years ago, Henry was at home playing with his daughter when two robbers suddenly burst in and viciously knocked him to the ground. The smaller robber was only after money, but the fatter one had far more sinister intentions. Right before Henry's eyes, the fat robber brutally assaulted and murdered his wife, and even his young daughter was not spared. Henry watched in horror, powerless to stop it, nearly blacking out from the pain and despair. His mouth was tightly gagged, rendering his cries for help utterly silent. This horrifying case quickly made the news, and the city's top prosecutor, Tom, took charge of it. Just when it seemed like the criminals would be brought to justice, the fat robber's lawyer used illegal means to destroy key evidence. Not only that, but he also exploited legal loopholes, voluntarily turned in the smaller robber, and portrayed himself as merely an accomplice. In the end, the smaller robber was sentenced to death, but the execution was set for 10 years later, while the fat robber received only a few years in prison. He would be out soon. Tom knew this was unfair, but fearing that pursuing the case further could risk a loss in court, jeopardizing his 96% conviction rate, he chose to strike a deal with the fat robber's lawyer. And just like that, the true monster escaped justice. When Henry heard the news, it hit him like a thunderbolt. He had believed the law would avenge his wife and daughter, only to realize how absurd and laughable justice could be. In that moment, his heart was consumed by rage and despair. 10 years passed. The day of the smaller robber's execution arrived, and everyone involved in the case was required to attend. Even at the brink of death, the smaller robber kept pleading his innocence, but no one could do anything. As per protocol, 3 vials of lethal drugs were injected into his body one by one. He was supposed to die peacefully, but instead, his body convulsed violently, struggling in agony before finally succumbing. Afterward, an investigation revealed that the drugs had been secretly tampered with. Stranger still, a chilling message was found on one of the vials: "Can't fight fate." That was the fat robber's catchphrase. Realizing something was wrong, Tom immediately led a team of officers to arrest the fat robber. At that moment, the fat robber was at home when he suddenly received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end warned him that the police were on their way and told him to run. Without hesitation, he bolted. Over the years, he had committed many crimes. Following the caller's instructions, he managed to evade capture, even hijacking a police car and leading officers on a chase to an abandoned factory. Finally, catching his breath, he grabbed his phone, exhilarated, and thanked the mysterious voice that had guided him to safety. But then, that same voice echoed from right in front of him. Henry had disguised himself as a cop and orchestrated everything. Panicked, the fat robber pulled out his gun and fired, only to find that the weapon had been tampered with. In an instant, his entire body went numb from a deadly toxin. He remained fully conscious, able to feel everything, but completely unable to move. In other words, every bit of pain he was about to endure would be excruciatingly clear, second by second, yet he wouldn't even have the ability to struggle. This was going to be a revenge feast, one that would be carried out to the very end.